Hey everyone, welcome to my show. This is the Christ generation. Thank you for watching this video. I'm going to go straight off from here. This is a portion of scripture from Romans chapter 8. He starts off by saying in verse 24, we were saved in this hope. You know, everyone speaks about being saved. If you're in the Christian faith, we speak about salvation, being saved. Well, what does it mean to be saved? And he says we're saved in this hope. And he says, but hope which is seen is not hope. Now, if we stay within the context of this chapter, I've been doing study on this. It's phenomenal what hope it is. It says hope which is seen is not hope. So I always try and think, surely God has got an amazing plan for creation. I believe He loves this place. I believe He loves the people. And so often, our perception or what we've been taught to, and what we've come to understand in the faith is, we're saved to go to a better place one day. And I do believe in the reality of heaven. I've repeated this in my videos. What I am eager to find out is, what does God have? Does He love this place? Or does He love creation? Does He love earth? And so often question, why take us to heaven? So check this out in Romans 8 from verse 19, a very popular scripture. It says, for creation, all creation eagerly waits for the revealing of God's sons. And this is a scripture that comes up a lot today in church, and it encourages us to go out and minister and to evangelize and to preach the gospel and to heal the sick, and I believe that's a part of it. But if we stay within the context of this chapter, he goes and explains what the revealing of the sons of God is. So check this out. Creation was subject to futility, not willingly because of Him who subjected it, in hope, because the creation itself will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of God's children. So this scripture says that what we inherit as God's children, God has ordained or planned that creation gains freedom. So, what is corruption? Explained in other videos, check them out. But corruption is basically everything dies, everything has to fade. That's what corruption means. So it has a glory, it blossoms, and then it goes away. Then it's like the flower blooms, and then next day it's gone. And it likens that to us as we're born, and then eventually we start to fade, and then we die, and then corrupts. Now, if we check out, he says, for we know that the whole creation groans. Now take note of the word groan. The whole creation groans and labors with birth pangs together, all right, until now. Not only that, but we have the first fruits of the Spirit. He says, we groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption or the manifestation of our sonship, which is the redemption of our body. So how much teaching have you heard on the redemption of your body? Usually we only hear about the redemption of your soul, but that your body can be redeemed. Your body, which means your body is important. And he says the manifestation of your sonship is the redemption of your body. So something has to change in our bodies. And God has planned it in such a way that creation gets set free from its bondage, according to Romans 8, once the sons of God step into the manifestation of sonship. And the sign of that is the redemption of your body. So check this out. 2 Corinthians 5 says, for we know that if our earthly house, this tent, is destroyed, he says we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. All right? So, I'll ask you, what would you rather live in? A tent or a building? So, Paul is writing and he explained to us that this body is like a tent. And he says, if this tent is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house. And he says, where is it? It's eternal in the heavens. So for as long as I can remember, and maybe even longer, the church has emphasized this scripture, which basically says that if something happens to this body, this tent, there is a building eternal in the heavens. Now, how awesome is that? What a comfort to know and to understand. But Paul doesn't stop there, and he says, for in this we groan. Now, remember, Romans 8 says that all creation is groaning. All right? All creation is groaning. Creation is groaning for the manifestation of the sons of God, which is the redemption of our bodies. He says, for in this, in what? In this tent, we groan, earnestly desiring to be clothed with our habitation, which is from heaven. So he splits the two groups. There is a group of people, you could say, or you could see it this way, that if the tent, if something happens and is destroyed, there is a building from God, eternal in the heavens. But he says, but while we're in this tent, we groan, what? Not to go. But he says, earnestly desiring to be clothed with our habitation, which is from heaven. So basically he says, and this is pretty awesome, he says you can have a building in heaven, or you can have a building from heaven. You can have a body in heaven, or you can have a body from heaven. And this is the manifestation of sonship, right? If indeed, having been clothed, we shall not be found naked. For we are in this tent groan, being burdened, not because we want to be unclothed, right? But further clothed, that mortality might be swallowed up by life. And now he says here, he who has prepared us for this very thing. Amplified translation puts it beautiful. It says, he who has fashioned us for this very thing is God, who also has given us the Spirit as a guarantee. All right, so now you have to think about this. He likens our body to a tent, and then he says that this tent will be clothed from heaven, or if something happens, you go to heaven, right? And then he goes on to say that we need to put it on so that we won't be found naked. And then he says, he who has prepared us for this very thing, or fashioned us for this very thing, is God. And so he goes on to say that when this tent is clothed with a building, it says mortality will be swallowed up with immortality, or with life. So think about this. He likens this building to clothing, something that you must put on so that you won't be found naked. Now, how do we groan? All of us, we groan inwardly. I think when people age, or when you lose a loved one, or even the death of your pet or an animal, there's this thing inside of you that says, yeah, this is not right. Here is a groaning. But I think also another action, like a prophetic action that we all make, is we put clothes on, which means that we were designed to put clothing on. All right, and you have to catch what I'm saying, because he speaks about mortality being nakedness, and immortality being the clothing that you have to put on. So it brings me back to Genesis. All right. So what happened in the garden? At the fall of man, which is not also just the fall of man. It impacted creation. It impacted everything. It impacted the way we do things. Death came into the picture. Not death only to man, death to all creation. So everything fades, everything corrupts. So obviously now, if you read Genesis chapter 2, it says that Adam and Eve were both naked. Now, in that sense, I know what we've been taught in Sunday school, that we have naked, but in the context of what I'm speaking in this video, we have to understand that nakedness is mortality. It symbolizes mortality. So I don't think God created Adam and Eve immortal. I believe that, and I understand that they were mortal. I touched on this in another video, which I'll share the link to on the screen. But so nakedness must be mortality. Now, so now what happens is, the serpent tempts Eve. Eve says, "You may eat of all the trees, but of the tree in the middle of the garden, God said, you shall not eat of it, because the day you touch it, you will die." And then, here's the thing. The serpent said unto the woman, "You shall not surely die." That was the lie. All right? That was the lie. So, and then he went on to say that God knows the day that you eat thereof, your eyes will be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. All right, so I'm reading on. So as soon as they both partook of it, all right, this is Genesis 3 verse 7, it says, the eyes of them both, Adam and Eve, were opened, and they knew that they were naked. In other words, the temptation said, if you eat of it, you will not die. Now, the first thing what happened was their eyes opened and they knew they were naked. My interpretation thereof is they knew they were mortal. That must have been the most offending thing, because they thought they would be like God. And the scriptures say that God alone is immortal. So they partook of something God forbid them to, because if they take of that, they would die. And so death came into the whole world as a result of this. And they knew that they were naked. They knew that they were mortal. And then you know the story. God comes walking in the garden. He says, Adam, where are you? And then Adam hid himself, right? And he says, we hid ourselves because we were naked. And then God said, who told you you were naked? So they found out a different way, other than from God. They found out that they were mortal. God never told them that they were mortal. God said, if you eat of the tree, you will die, So they discovered their mortality through partaking of the fruit, and death entered the picture. And so the interesting story goes on to say that God covered them with, skin or animal skin. So he made clothing. So I wonder, with God using like animal skin, suggesting a sacrifice of, creation to cover Adam and Eve's mortality. Has this not been the story that something must die for something to live? So obviously at the redemption of the body, that law, that rule is obviously removed. So there's life, everything lives. But I also think it was a prophetic picture of the sacrifice, which would be the final sacrifice of Jesus, the lamb slain, for the life of the world, and obviously him laying down his life for us to pick that kind of life up. So now, bearing in mind the redemptive story of man, that God didn't only send his son to die for our sin and sickness, but surely it includes the complete redemption story, which is even that we could gain, that undo the works of the devil, or to bring complete redemption, spirit, soul, and body. And all creation is waiting for this redemption to take place. So 2 Corinthians 5 says, God fashioned you. He fashioned your body to put a clothing on, a kind of clothing. Every day you wake up, you put on clothes. It is a prophetic declaration or an action that at some time that we're supposed to put on this clothing that God designed for us. If something happens to our body, the clothing is there, right? But the ideal thing is that we can bring that clothing and we can put it on. We groan to put it on. Romans 8 says, all creation groans for the manifestation of God's sons, which is the redemption of the body. I want to bring a message of hope, and not just one that comforts us, and obviously it's needed when there is a loss of someone loved, but what about bringing a message of hope to all creation? And what about bringing a message of life that involves everything that concerns you? And it's not just to get you out of the earth. It is about getting heaven to earth. It's always been about God bringing restoration to that horrific fall of mankind and all creation. So I trust that blessed you. If you like that, obviously hit the like, subscribe to the channel, share, and I'd be glad to answer some of your questions if there are any. So yeah, bless you. Check out my other videos. Maybe it might help understand if I touch on some things that you've never heard on before. Check them out. All right, bless you.